Good morning, everybody. I'm Bill Davis, and on behalf of the entire Office Hours team, I get to say welcome to our daily show. This is where we answer your tech questions live every single day, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time in the U.S. So let's get right to those questions. And Courtney Gooden's going to start us off as announcer this morning. Courtney, dive in.
From Brooklyn, New York, we have Angelo Jack with the question, morning office hours. Please, can the panel suggest a way to control a Blackmagic Design cameras using wireless transmitters and retain full bidirectional camera control with full camera feedback? It will be working with an ATEM Extreme ISO.
So this is a fun little explain the universe in 25 words or less and why. Jesse Kester's going to dive in and try to do it.
Well, I'm not going to be able to explain the whole universe. When we're working between an ATEM and a Blackmagic camera, even when we're on HDMI, we're like 90% confident that that bidirectional communication is going to work. We see a lot of failures on production, especially with the autofocus button. Not all lenses connect to the camera and the way the camera wants to connect to the HDMI and the way the HDMI wants to connect to the ATEM. So you just don't get clean communication even when you're hardline. When we're wireless, we go in assuming that there's no bidirectional communication. If we get the signal from the camera into the ATEM, we're happy about that. We will be recording at camera level because anything can happen on that wireless connection. But I'm not going to leave you completely hanging. We use, for camera control, we use the Blackmagic app on the phone, and you can go camera by camera and make the adjustments that you want from the app. And I actually kind of prefer this one. I feel like the way that this interfaces with the camera when it comes to white balance and tint feels a little bit better and more kind of native to how the camera is actually designed. So for white balance and tint, I prefer this interface, but the remote app is kind of not quite there for the audio controls. So when we're doing audio controls, we actually go back to the camera and do it on camera. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. Most of the things I can control remotely through the ATEM switcher through just an HDMI connection, but there are some things that I can't. For example, every morning when I reboot my camera, I have to go in and change a couple of ISO settings, and it's harder to get some aspects of the full range of what the Blackmagic camera onboard menu allows you to get into and flip and change. I haven't found a way to get everything there. The most used controls I can get access to, and so I have to reboot my camera and reprovision some of those things every day, but it's not 100%. So Angelo, hope you can find a solution that works for you. Let's go to our next question.
Next one comes in from Madrid, Spain. Ignacio asks, how do you implement the HDR workflow from the camera point of view? I'd love to know the details about that.
You're really going to have a show where Alex is here, because Alex is kind of custom designing this HDR workflow, and we've been working on it for a long time. I know there's a lot of technical details, and we're still, he's been working on that for probably 3.5 of the 4 years we've been here. His vision has always been to get an HDR 5.1 kind of web workflow going, and there are still pieces of that appear to still be under review. I do know that in the Blackmagic cameras, wait a second, just generically, that was the last question that had Blackmagic. Camera has to be set correctly, and then everything has to go. Mickey has a couple of notes here in the chat about that. He's saying not with Blackmagic Design products, and look into professional camera solutions with CCUs and RCP control to get where you're looking for. So hopefully that'll help. Let's go to the next question.
Next one comes in from Kent and Madison, perhaps Wisconsin. First, thanks for the great information about the power banks we talked about yesterday. Is there a good way to get data sim for a dongle to plug into a LiveU instead of ongoing to the major phone companies? Just pick up something when needed.
Courtney Gooden has some thoughts for you. Kent?
Well, there are, most of the phone carriers at airports, you can find them, these prepaid SIM cards that you can buy. You just have to make sure that you get one that fits the LiveU, and you have to find a plan that's going to work for a lot of data. So you can search for prepaid SIM cards in the area and where the carriers are that you're going to be using that LiveU, and you should be able to purchase one. Of course, you're going to prepay for it, so maybe you'll use up all your data, and you may have to refresh it with your credit card if you're using a whole lot of data.
And my apologies on that last answer. When I popped in, I was reading Mickey's answer to the previous question. Kent, he had some advice for you about the previous question. Take the log output of the camera as at their native log color spaces and transform each into the HDR color space standard used by the production with LUT boxes or something like an FS-HDR. So sorry about that. I didn't realize it had scrolled up. I thought that was the current question response from the Mocana chat. And for those of you who don't know what that is, every day when we do this show, not only do we do the live show, and not only can you use the QR code to add questions into things, but if you'd like to follow the breadcrumb trail that gets you into Mocana, which is our back-end chat system, there is an active, robust, and very intelligent live chat that happens, and a lot of people pop in on the questions and add things to them. We try to get some of that into the show, reading them as I did a couple of times, but there's also a lot of stuff. To get there, you can go to officehours.global/join, put your information in, and you will get a ping every day about what we're going to be talking about on the show and how to get a little more involved if you'd like to, including that live Mocana interface connection. And when you do that, you can vote these questions that come in from all of our viewers and listeners up and down, and by doing that, program the show, basically. So, next question.
Next one comes in from Douglas Carmichael. He says, FabFilter just released Pro Q4 today. Has anyone worked with it yet? He has a link to it.
I've heard of them, and I've heard positive things about them, but I have not known anybody who's talked to me specifically about the FabFilter line. I know Mickey has talked to me a lot about really liking some of their products in the past, but I had not seen anybody talk to me specifically about the Pro Q4 filter. So unfortunately, Mickey does say, no, always test new versions of tools, though, before using them in production, which means that that's generically useful information. We all get things and go, this works great for me, and we tell our friend about it. This will solve all your problems. And they get it, and they configured their system differently, and suddenly it doesn't work at all. So it's just part and parcel to the big complex mess that is production these days. Let's go on to our next question.
From down in Austin, Texas, Paul Walhus wants to know, what do you make of Maxon's newly released 3D design product demo video?
Courtney, have you taken a look at some of this?
I tried to take a look a little bit, but yes, I did. It has a very interesting opening that's 3D animation. This is a 3D animation software, so you can create characters and animate them in a variety of ways, and it starts off with a interesting little piece here, but I won't play it so we don't get taken down by YouTube. But it looks pretty high quality as far as the lighting package and the character package works. And from what's shown in the demo, it looks, you could create your own little shorts that would look the equivalent of DreamWorks animation, or I don't know, Pixar. They got a little better lighting package, but
Yeah, they spent a little bit of time and money on developing things.
3D animation companies out there. Yeah, it looks pretty interesting. I don't know how much it costs.
Jesse Kester might know something. He raised his hand on this one as well. Jesse?
I don't know the cost, but I do know that I've done, I've worked in different 3D modeling and animation packages over the years, and there's this very, very thick brick wall that is hard for me to punch through, and that's the interface. And it's really nice to see tools being developed that seem to be built around like a tactile approach to 3D modeling and animation. And I think that tactile approach is going to open the art form up to a whole class of people who have wanted to do it, but just couldn't get through all the menus and sub-menus and text blocks that were necessary before we had these more tactile devices like the iPads.
Hopefully that helped you, Paul. Let's go to our next question.
Next one comes in from Raja Chandil in Los Angeles. Thoughts on the new enhanced audio feature on voice record?
Jesse Kester is going to start us off, and then Courtney will weigh in. Jesse?
Boy, howdy, has the microphone on mobile phones been good for a long time. I'm surprised it took Apple this long to bust out the Michael Bublé's to advertise how good their microphones on their camera, or not cameras, their phones are. I guess they're still classified as phones and not really cameras. but it's still a cell phone microphone, and you can hear it even in the demo videos. This is the highest quality demo that Apple can produce, which means it's going to be top tier, and the voice is still over compressed, over processed. It doesn't sound good. Like, it doesn't sound like good, clean. I'm trying to think of another word. I'm just going to say the word in my head. Like good, clean, naked audio. And what I want to hear when you're demoing a mic is good, clean, naked audio, not processed, not compressed. And there's so much compression going on the vocal demos that they have going on, even for this Buble ad.
Courtney Gooden, your thoughts?
It's a Buble ad. Yes, I think the main feature they're touting here, and this works only, I think this is the iPhone 16 Pro that they're promoting here, and I think it needs that AI, that touch of local AI to do background noise removal. So that's one of the things that they're kind of touting, that you can sing a vocal to a playback that's coming out of the phone, and it will noise cancel the playback and give you a clean track of just the vocal that you could then take into the studio. That's what they're promoting in this commercial. And that's going to, of course, generate some AI noise removal of a background track, and it has him recording it and sitting in the back of a car in traffic. So, just what every singer wants to do is record their next vocal track while listening to their iPhone sitting in the back of a taxi cab on the way to the air. But hey, noise removal, we've come a long way with AI, and noise removal is helping me remove the heater from the background of my track right now.
And my background sounds are being suppressed also. That gentle air conditioning back there is being taken away. Jeffrey Powers, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, everybody's background track is being compressed in some way, shape, or form, or removed, or whatever, either through the microphone, through the system that you're using, or through Zoom itself. So that's not a big deal. As for Michael Blube, trusting a paid entertainer to give you a sponsored ad is not really the way that I would trust the sound. And absolutely, the microphones, I'll give the iPhone 16 microphones and the 15 microphones and the 14 microphones. They all did a great job in doing that. And I would have geared this more towards collaboration more than how cool the microphone is, because as Courtney said, they used it to collaborate so they could go in the studio and actually make tracks from that. And I think that's the bigger issue here. It would have been better, in a car on a busy highway. Yeah, that does make a little bit of background noise. But if you were in the middle of a convention center, that makes background noise. And I'd love to hear how that gets compressed out as somebody's singing, because it doesn't. It just sounds horrible. And there's no way around it. Maybe someday, but maybe Apple will make an external microphone someday, but that actually gets closer to the mouth so you can have all this stuff. But I highly doubt it, and definitely not through a phone.
So from my perspective, as somebody who's done voice work for most of my career, I will say that there's places for all of these approaches, and that compressed sound, if I'm doing a 60-second spot or a 30-second spot for radio or television, I usually am pretty hard on compression, because the most important single part of that sound coming out of your car speaker or your small earbuds or whatever is the information carried by the voice. So it needs to be way forward in a mix. There can be no conflict with music beds or sound effects or anything else, because it's carrying the mission critical information. So that's work that I did for decades, and we always pushed the voice really hard. Now that I'm doing a lot of work in the audiobook realm, it's 100% different. That same compressed sound that works really well for a spot would drive people nuts if they were trying to listen to it for 10 hours in listening back on an audio book. So my compression profiles when I'm doing the work I'm doing now are just 180 degrees different. Barely, maybe 1.4 or something like that in terms of a compression setting. I never even get close to 2-to-1 now, because I don't want it out front. I want it as natural sounding as possible. I want to really sound like I'm right next to, like I'm 6 to 10 inches from your ear and I'm telling you a story. So for each person making a decision on how much is right, if you're using your phone to do like a little quick demo and you want to kill the background sound as we've been talking about and sing into it, if you're just doing it for not the actual recording, but to give yourself notes or to communicate with people or get information out, I can see this as being incredibly useful. As everybody has been saying, though, if you're really sensitive to the quality of the vocal recording, you want to always start with no compression and see how little you can get away with to do the job, to even out those changes in dynamic range and things like that and get things evened out somewhat, but not rob it of any dynamic range, because that's really what makes the performance kind of come alive. That's the difference between somebody talking and that radio sound of everything's in your face all the time. And even the quietest whispers are just as loud as the screams. That's not good for the long run, in my opinion. Jesse Kester, you had another thought you wanted to bring in?
Yeah, you mentioned about people who are not overly sensitive to these different dynamic ranges. If you're not overly sensitive to these things, you really shouldn't be training your ear on iPhone recorded audio. That you really should be avoiding it if you're not sensitive to these differences. Start training your ear on higher quality microphones.
Yeah, I will say I think he's making a very good point here. We tend, if you're watching movies and television and things like that, particularly action movies and things like that, like everything is in your face. And I can't tell you the number of people who have talked to me that I want to go into voiceover and things like that, and they get a hold of some equipment, and the first thing they do is turn up compression or limiting, some sort of dynamic range limiting, so that they're kind of more in your face and a more radio sound. And it's like, you really shouldn't start with trying to change that. You should start by working on your voice and getting your performance correct, rather than trying to fix it in post and make it bigger or lower or more present than it otherwise is naturally. You've got to learn your natural voice and figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then process, not the other way around. I caution people all the time, don't just crank up the compression and think that you sound better. You don't. Unfortunately, when you do that, it enhances not just what you're saying, but every pop, click, glottal stop, fricative, everything that goes into the signal gets pumped up to max, and sometimes that can be really bad. In fact, in the audiobook world, there's constant chatter about, how do I get rid of all these mouth clicks? How do I, I'm really sounding clicky today, or I'm sounding splashy today, or so. How do I get rid of that? Well, it's because you've chose to compress every part of the signal rather than learning how to perform without some of that stuff. So my 2 cents. We could spend too much time on this. We're going to the next question.
All right. From Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Discuss Google's first AI agent that can act on the web from DeepMind Project Mariner. Gemini-powered controls Chrome, moves the cursor, fills out forms, etc.
All right. We're going to start with Jesse Kester here. Jesse?
It's all fun and games until you get into liability. I don't think I'll ever let an AI take over my mouse and my form fill outs and my keyboard, because I'm responsible for what I put out under my name.
I hear that. Courtney Gooden, your thoughts?
Yeah, I watched some videos on this last night about Project Mariner, and all the major AI vendors here, OpenAI, are coming out, and Gemini and Google and Apple probably maybe next year have come out with agent-driven AI engines that will actually not only can you ask it something and it will answer, you can ask it to do something and it will go out on the web, look something up, find it, fill in a form for you, transfer funds between my accounts, transfer $30,000 between my accounts for me, will you? Yeah, I don't think I'd trust it for that. You'd have to trust it with your passwords for your bank or whatever if you're going to have it do as an agent. So I'd be very careful about that, since somebody could be looking over your shoulder, steal your phone out of your hand and then transfer funds to their account with that agent. I don't trust it yet.
Liberty White.
Yeah, so plus 1,000 to everything that has been shared here. And just, I took another view of it, of looking at like what Project Mariner, and that if you think of it even in the sea type of thing, that this is just basically having an agent that's going to be able to just help you with various tasks. And while there are definitely privacy concerns, the idea of it potentially taking screenshots and where that stuff can be sent to, I am interested to see what kind of safeguards Google is going to put around this, and to help us just navigate. Like, there's actually a wait list. So anybody who's watching and you actually want to see what could take place with this, you can go ahead and fill that wait list out. But for companies in the marketing world, they're just thinking about all the repetitive tasks that you can do outside of, like, think of it. It's basically like taking the layer of, if you use Gemini or ChatGPT or Perplexity, using those things, you actually have to go into those devices or those apps and use them, or even if you use them on your desktops, you've got to go there. This is actually like within your workspace. How many tabs do you have open right now with work that you're doing? Then being able to have that to automate some of those things, so that 100th tab that you forgot, that you started to fill out the form for this or that you would have an agent that would autonomously do that for you. So I can see where they're heading, but there's just way too many concerns right now for me. So it'll be interesting to see how they unpack this.
This is the leading edge frontier. We're all trying to grapple with where is AI going to be impacting us, and how do we keep it under control, both globally and for ourselves as individuals. And stay tuned. We'll continue to discuss that because you're continuing to ask questions about it. By the way, if you're watching this and not inside Mukana, I talked a little bit about that earlier, and you'd like to pop in a question, don't forget we have the QR code available to you. Let's see if I can punch this button right and bring it up. That QR code that's appearing in the bottom of the screen will allow you to get into kind of the quick submission system for questions. So take a picture of that, or use the URL askofficehours.global, and you can get your questions in, and then everybody who's in the bigger Mukana system will be able to vote on those questions and get a chance to get them into the queue for today's show. Thanks. And next question.
Next one comes in from Henderson, I guess Nevada. Jeff Veely says, Courtney, can you share the app again that removes YouTube ads? And does this work on a computer and mobile?
Okay, other than the advertising agencies, who are now, the sound you hear is them squealing and upset. Courtney, dive in.
Well, see, the important thing is they think the ads are playing, but so the YouTube person gets reimbursed anyway. But SmartTube Next is an open source project, and that's the URL, smarttubenext.com. Be careful, because there's a lot of this is a frequent target of spammers and people that want to they attack actually this website occasionally and put naughty video links up there and sell other stuff. But right now it's okay. If you go to smarttubenext.com, and there's two versions of it, the beta and the stable. I recommend the stable. This only works with Android TV. So if you have an Android TV or a streaming box that uses Android, the Android operating system, this will work. If you have an Android phone, they don't warranty it to work on phones necessarily, but I have a Samsung A50, which I downloaded it onto, and it works. You do have to download it and use downloader and sideload it onto your operating system. But it works great. They update it constantly. Google will try and throw little distractions in there to knock it out, and they'll be in there and fix it within 30 minutes to an hour. There'll be a new version. It updates itself online every time you go to it, and it will load the update very smoothly. And it works great. It has a whole lot of controls over your playback. You can go with all different versions of resolutions and all different types of HDR, and it handles all of that pretty cleanly. You can turn on whether or not you want to take the ads out or not. You can have it, you have very granular control over skipping over things like self-promotion or, don't forget to hit that button and ring that thing. If that happens in a lot of your favorite YouTubers out there, it will skip over a canned open things like that, plus embedded commercials. And there are no pre-rolls, no interruptions, etc. And it works great. Occasionally, it'll go out for 30 minutes to an hour, have problems playing back, and then they will push out an update and it'll be fixed because there's a large group of people that are supporting it. Smart Cube next, and it does work on if you don't have, if you got an Apple TV or something, forget it because it won't work on there. But you can get the ONN streaming stick from Walmart for around $14.95 for the HD and $19.95 for the 4K, and it installs nicely on there. Side loads. That's what I give away for Christmas presents to people.
I'm still stunned. You mentioned naughty videos. I can't find any of those on the internet, nor cat videos. I keep looking, and I just can't come up with either of them. Let's see. Jesse Kester is going to come in next.
Just going to jump in and say that the value proposition is absolutely there for YouTube Premium. YouTube is the biggest collection of information and entertainment on the planet, and to get to access that without ads is worth the $150 a year, 150, whatever it was, 140. And when I signed up, no naughty videos landed on my screen. So even just there alone, it's a +1.
Jeffrey Powers.
I second the YouTube Premium. I just love the comment. It works great, but it didn't work just an hour ago. But it works great. But there's naughty videos that show up. But it works great. And the other funny thing I found out about
naughty videos.
Yeah, every now and then. Yeah, but the other funny thing that I find is that it doesn't work on iOS, but it works on Android, which is the company that's actually that needs the ads. It's kind of that ironic thing. But yeah, I would never trust something like that. I highly don't recommend that. Not because it could be taking away from my creations, because you might think that I would get paid for something like that if you watch one of my videos without an ad, but there's no case study that says that actually happens. You could say that it happens, but it might not happen. And the bigger thing is that it just circumvents the system, and it brings harm to you if it shows a naughty video or if it has some spam or malware on there. So yeah, I would highly recommend just to get the premium and be done with it.
Courtney, you want to come back in?
I might point out the contamination of the website is only with the download site. Once the program is loaded, it doesn't show you anything. The program itself doesn't do that. It's just occasionally it gets attacked.
Is it like one of those web pages where you go to download something and you have like a big green button that says download, but it's not the actual app?
That page I just showed you. You click the button, it downloads. No spam, nothing else on it. Occasionally somebody actually hacks their website and inserts code into their web page. But other than that, if when they notice it, they clean it up. Pretty
Raj
tough.
Shandell in the comments says, letting AI take control of my work and my car's self-drive? And Robert Lincoln replied, unwittingly, you may become a crash test dummy. I've had the feelings a couple of days on the internet. Like, that is my life. Let's go to the next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. As you are building your career, what do you trust to give to you feedback on your? Who do you trust to give you feedback on your job performance, or was getting hired for the next gig the best feedback?
Jesse Kester, what are your thoughts on this?
We bake this into every production we do, and I'm talking about bottom up and top down. We bake this into our production. What I mean by that is as soon as we're wrapped, I have a meeting with the crew. So that's the bottom up, like everybody I'm in charge of instructing. And we sit down and we talk about what went poorly, what could have gone smoother, what went well and surprised us. And we take these, as people are talking, we jot these down into massive bullet point documents in Apple Notes. And it comes with little tick box so that as we apply these notes to our workflow, we can tick them off to make sure that they've been implemented. It could be as simple as we needed more HDMI couplers. It could be as complicated as the team was half the size of what was needed to do this job, and in the future we need to have 8 people instead of 4, whatever. Whatever scale the notes are. When I'm talking about top-down, we have a very similar meeting with the clients. We ask them what went right, what went wrong. Did they notice anything that kind of felt off to them? And it's not like a test. We don't try to bake in little mistakes to see if the client is paying attention. We just want to get their feedback on what they liked about the production, what they didn't like about the production. Really worrying is when they say everything was perfect. Because if they say everything was perfect and then we don't hear from them again, we know that nothing was perfect, and they just didn't want to deal with any of that at all and wanted to push it off their plate as quick as possible. This has allowed us to have long and very strong relationships with our clients and with our crews, because it builds a trust that goes beyond the delivery of the materials. It kind of embeds everybody in an ongoing conversation. And it's a conversation geared explicitly towards improvement on all stages of production. And we find that the people who work with us, the people who work for us, appreciate that type of workflow and productions that move in that direction. And we find that clients feel much the same way. So that's kind of how we fill in those ignorance gaps. And there's no benefit to leaving this to chance or to guesswork. You aren't helping yourself. You aren't helping your employees. You aren't helping your clients if you're trying to read the tea leaves. Just ask directly, get a direct answer, and implement every direct answer that you can afford to implement as quickly as possible.
Liberty White.
This question came at a good time. It's actually Computer Science Week nationally, and tomorrow is the Georgia Day of Code, and I'll be speaking with the Technology Association of Georgia. They're speaking to high school students. So while Jesse spoke more from an entrepreneur manager standpoint and having a team, when I look at Roscoe's question, it's like it really depends on what part of your career, phase of your career you're in. So I'm going to do a mix of like what I would say, what I've done, but also what I would say to my younger self of how I would navigate it, because he's asking, who do you trust? Now, hopefully you would be able to trust the supervisor, the manager, whoever is managing the project that you're working on inside of an organization. There is a need to be very proactive to a degree, because you may not always get check-ins from them. And then you're also listening with a grain of salt, like listening to their feedback and asking the right questions, and then now doing some self-checks as well as you're trying to navigate that. As you become more senior, you are potentially looking at finding sponsors inside of an organization. A sponsor is someone who's going to advocate for you and who's going to say your name in rooms that you're not in. So you're looking to have those people around you, and then you're creating that. So it might not necessarily be someone even on your team or your immediate supervisor. It might be someone in the organization. So yes, looking for someone there. Also potentially being in other organizations or doing volunteer work or doing things like that where you can continually to get feedback. So you've got to always be curious. And then in addition to that, with AI now, some of the things that I look at and doing, like even sometimes when I record a video or do a tutorial, I'll put that transcript back into whatever platform and ask questions and ask for like the pros and the cons and what I did well and where can I improve. So there are ways that I can like self do that. So I would say that the technology has come a way where you still get human feedback, definitely. But if you don't have that infrastructure around you where you can get that feedback and support, that you can also do it that way as well. And I think in our economic climate right now, that people are also looking towards the next gig as well. So hopefully this gives some good feedback on how you can focus on your professional development at this time while you're looking for the next.
Jesse, you wanted to come back in on this?
Yeah, and if you're a young person looking up the ladder, trying to solicit feedback, first of all, do that. Absolutely do that. The people the people who are kind of earlier in their careers that we hire that don't aren't interested in any feedback at all they don't drift away. We drift them away pretty efficiently. The other side of that coin is don't like ingratiate yourself aggressively. Don't be obnoxious about it. At the end of a shooting day, just walk up to the producer and say like, hey, is there anything I could have done better today? Did you see anything? We want to keep tightening screws. If you notice anything, just, hit me up. Something subtle like that, casual, but you definitely want to drop that in. Do it sincerely. Don't do it just because you're trying to make sure somebody on the production knows that you're the type of person who solicits feedback, and make sure you apply it, because we absolutely notice when somebody asks us what they could have improved on. Because if there is something they could have improved on, it was kind of like a needle poking in the back of our neck the whole day, and we will say that this is where you could improve. And if you don't apply that, we really notice that. Like if you continue to do the same thing that was bugging us the whole day after we told you it was bugging us, you've kind of doubled. You went from a 6-foot grave to a 12-foot grave.
I will say that learning to take criticism is one of the toughest and most important things any human being can do. And I think it's going to get harder and harder for the generations coming up. I really think that the pandemic generation really lost something in not getting off into office circumstances and working from home. One of the things is, generally your parents love you and love everything you do. And to get out in the real world, well, somebody's going to look at you and go, that piece of work sucks. It's just not very good. Do better. That is a very hard thing to hear. I'll never forget the Nat Stevens, the program director at a station called KOY in Phoenix, was the first place I ever went to pitch myself as somebody who could do voice work. Literally, he said, here's a cart, go do the cart. I did it. It came back, and he said, that's terrible. This is just not very good. And he waited a couple of beats, and he said, but I hear something, and I think you might be able to do this. If you want to come back in 1 week and try again, I'll give you 5 minutes. And I went and I didn't feel good about myself or my potential and the rest of that. But I kind of just gritted my teeth and I went back in and I did it again. He said, you're not very good still, but you listen to what I said. I can hear an improvement. Come back next week and I'll give you 5 minutes again. And he did that 5 times. And he was essentially putting me through this series of tests. Are you going to be able to take criticism, bounce back, listen to it, integrate it, make changes in yourself? Because if so, you can improve. And the last day I went in to say him, he said, all right, I'm going to look for a spot for you on the overnight thing because you've really listened and you've paid attention. And that was really, truly the beginning of my career. Sadly for him and my relationship with him, I got hired by another station, but in large part because of what he did with me in critiquing me ruthlessly, but not improperly and not personally. It really did inspire me to do better. So if there's nothing else I've learned, every time I go into a circumstance where I'm showing a piece of work, and this is one of the most incredibly vulnerable things you do. I created this. I did this. I want you to judge it now. And people will judge it. Everything you put on the air, everything you write and send out on the internet, people will be happy to judge it and pick it apart. If you can't handle that, if you can't take it and see if you can find a nugget of wisdom that will help you improve, I don't think you're going to have a long-standing career in this. The best people out there have all been criticized ruthlessly, and they've responded by finding a way to do better. An important part of this business. Liberty, you wanted to close things off?
Yeah, I just wanted to come back because you made an excellent point. Because even with my daughter now, when she'll do things, she's really creative, and I'll say, well, you can do better, or you could this, whatever the feedback on, oh, mommy, that was mean. No, it's not mean. It is, I'm giving you feedback so that it will help you to even, she loves anime, do this better and whatnot. And I think going back to Roscoe's question for a moment is look at the track record of the person that you are working with or working under, and do they have a track record? Like, what does the quality of their work look like? Because is this even someone that you even want to really take any feedback from? Like, that makes an impact. I think of like when I first got to the U.S., it was like I was in Dallas first, and Cheryl Smith, she was one of the presidents of the Dallas-Fort Worth Association of Black Journalists panelist, and I was in her program, and she, as everybody would say, like, if you graduated from CSU, her personal, like, just training, you could go and do anything in the world. And she was tough on us, because I'm also looking at Mickey's comment in there in Mukana of just having people who are just ruthless with their feedback. But do you see change when you take their advice or when you listen to them? So just looking at the quality of the feedback and who it's coming from could make potentially a difference in the trajectory of your career.
Absolutely. It's all great is not very actionable. You just keep doing the same thing. And it's that one person who says, well, it's really good, but there was this thing you did over here that I don't know why, but it took me out of the piece. And you're going, oh, great. I can look at that, analyze it, and figure out what I did that maybe I can do better next time. Anyway, we could talk about this for hours because it's an important topic. Thank you for the question, Roscoe. And let's move on to our next question.
Poonsak Dorji says, hi, panelists. We are planning a panel discussion with 4 panelists and 1 joining over Zoom and a moderator. Where should I place the video screen of the panelist joining from the remote?
Jeffrey Powers, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of unknowns that we still don't know. Like, for instance, how is the panel going to be set up? Do you have 4 chairs? Is there going to be a moderator? Is the moderator going to be on a podium? Is the moderator going to be standing in a podium where the rest are being sitting in chairs? Are they going to be high back chairs? When I moderate a panel, I like to see people's faces, and that includes the person that's virtual. So I would want to be in that position. But the bigger question is, how will the person that's coming in virtual see the panel? Because the one thing that I don't like when I come into shows is seeing what everybody else sees, because it's usually a lot of fast back and forth. I want to see the panel the whole time, because if panelist number 2 is actually saying something, but they just don't look right, then I want to be able to react to that, and then I want to be able to show that I want to react to that, so that the MC can point to me. So in that case, if it's a podium and 3 chairs, I would put the monitor towards the end of it. But if the MC's in the middle, then yeah, I'd probably put it to the left or the right and not next to me, because you just can't see the face that way. And that's the important thing. And also, the one other thing I would highly recommend is to test the speed, the latency on your Zoom call, because latency always makes a difference if the virtual panelist wants to actually react to something.
Courtney, your thoughts?
Yeah, we don't know if this is for a live meeting where there's going to be an audience there, or is this just a streamed panel thing that's just going to go out over the air and it's not going to have a live in-studio audience. How it's set up, I would generally put the monitor for the attendee that's not the panelist that's not there underneath a camera that is shooting the panelists, so that the panelists are looking at the camera. I'd put it right under the lens of the camera that's shooting the panelists. Or if you have prompters, put it in the prompter, teleprompter for the panelists, so that they can look into the cameras and talk to that other panelist. And same thing for the moderator. If it's a public, if there's an audience in the theater, like if it's on a stage in a theater or something, then you might have your 4 panelists at the front of the theater. You might have an IMAG image on the background that's showing IMAG of the individual panelists, and they would switch to the remote panelists when that remote panelist speaks. That would be for the people in the audience in the theater to see. And then you would have a second monitor facing the opposite direction out in the audience, facing the panelists, so that they can see the same thing, and they can see the external, the 4th panelist when that panelist talks, and put it right underneath the camera and make it big enough to be seen at a distance for the other 3 panelists and the moderator.
And Funsak's in the chat, and there's a lot of good material being fed back and forth. The discussion is very active there. So if you want to learn more about this, remember, hop into the Mukata system, and you'll be able to see more of what we're talking about here every day. Let's go to the next question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia says, House of Worship is building a new church, and they want to do a hybrid worship and to do hybrid worship and stream plays, what kind of cameras should they use, and should they use professional lighting?
Harshid's going to start us off. Harshid Trivedi.
Yes, I wanted to outline that between consumer goods and professional products, I think it is really important for the wear and tear factor to go with professional gear. So that's just one note with maybe lighting or even the cameras. As far as brands are concerned, definitely Sony has some good offerings even in the professional end of cameras. It has good focus, or autofocus rather. I have seen other folks through office hours and after hours. Ronnie Settle, I think, is one of the names that comes to mind, that perhaps they use PTZs in their house of worships. What I would also do is do some research with anybody else that has been in office hours to perhaps get some feedback. So you might not, take the same route that maybe they may have taken, with buying a specific brand where they were bottlenecked into a corner. So again, stick to professional gear because it might just last you longer. Simple lighting, we might not look at it as a consumer grade bulb lasting as long, but if it's a professional bulb, you at least have that brand reliability with some of these lighting manufacturers. So I would stick to the professional stuff and then kind of do that research just to ensure that you're not going in a route where something may just not be something for you, and then for your cost, you'll get a better understanding to how to shop for it.
Jesse Kester.
Now, if this church is going to be, like a 50 or 100 seater, I would say the straightest line is with Sony's, because for a couple of reasons. The first is you do have excellent autofocus, as mentioned. But the other thing about Sony's is you've got kind of like an offering at every $100 price point. And it seems like they're trying to introduce a camera body at every $50 price point. So like $100, $150, $200, $250. Sony's a little bit out of control with the number of models they have on the market. But the nice thing about that is you can have your A and B camera at the upper end and know that your C, D, E, and F cameras, even if they're, like a half the price of your A camera or a third the price, that the sensors are by the same manufacturer and that it's going to match pretty well, all things considered. So you can fill in a lot of gaps and color match quite well. If your church is larger than that, though, if you're, looking at, 200, 500 seats in your church, I would consider tying, let me do that cut. Yeah, there we go. I would consider the Blackmagic Micro Studios because those have SDI out, and the big thing you're going to get into in a larger house of worship is the travel. Like the signal path is just going to be long. When you get into a big, a big church, 50 feet is not much. 100 feet is not much in a larger church. You're going to be going 100 feet, 200 feet, and you really want SDI because you don't want to be doing decimators on every camera every step of the way. So that would be one worth considering. The other thing is you're going to be setting and forgetting these cameras. So a lot of them are going to be locked off, one on the pulpit, a wide shot of the entire room, a couple other shots, maybe one of the choir bay, things like that. So you might want to consider that. I would tie them all into the ATEM SDI ISO so that whether you're doing Sony's or Blackmagics, whatever cameras you are, I would make sure that you get an ISO board, an ISO switching board, so that when you hit record, you're recording a 1080 signal from every camera input, and you'll get the DaVinci Resolve project out of the board and be able to make updates or be able to broadcast just the wide shot. If you wanted to do the entire wide shot as an upload later on, you'd have access to all of your individual camera feeds. And I think that would be really essential in getting this project across the finish line.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Harshid Trivedi, who's here on the panel today in Daytona Beach, Florida. What is your recommendation for a service that offers background music, especially to avoid copyright problems when using it on YouTube? It could include music and other sound banks, I suppose.
Jesse, your thoughts?
When we're getting when we're just like down and dirty productions that don't really matter, stuff for our YouTube channel, we're, Storyblocks is the one that we use for that. When it's client work, we don't go below the level of premium beat because we know that we're paying a song by song license and we get the license agreement from the time we downloaded the song. There's a date stamp on that purchase and the name of the project on that purchase. So Premium Beat might change their terms of engagement down the road in 6 months or 6 years or whatever, but we still have that license that we purchased at that time and the contract connected to that license. With sites like Storyblocks and there's a whole bunch of them out there that do these subscription models. If you end your subscription, you could lose access to the songs that you downloaded, and your YouTube channel or the client's work could get copyright strikes against it. And you just have to do so much more work to go back and find this contract and dispute it that way and go toe-to-toe with whatever the service is, if the service still exists or if it's been bought out by another company and all the rights to all those songs. It just gets really messy with those subscription services. What we're doing now, the Premium Beat has kind of been like a stopgap measure, and what we're doing now is commissioning music. We found that it's not that much more expensive to commission the songs that we need. It is more expensive than Premium Beats and certainly more expensive than Storyblocks, but being able to generate our own bespoke contract that has everything laid out as we want it laid out, and being able to work with a musician, there's lots of musicians and lots of them are hungry, so the prices aren't as terrifying as you might imagine them to be. And the other benefit is that it's really super fun to get in touch with musicians and collaborate on ideas and give a little bit of feedback and see what they come up with, which is always better than anything we could have come up with in-house. And then it grows and compounds, and it's just fun. It's really fun to do that process. So those are the kind of 3 stages we use, and we're moving more and more away from subscription, leaning on those paid services, the Premium Beats for the time being, and building out our bespoke workflow right now.
Jeffrey Powers?
Oh yeah, Storyblocks is a great one. I use Epidemic Sound and I've been using that for years. And the contract basically says if I end my subscription, I've got to end using the music and sound effects, because they do sound effects. And any video that I've done in the past will still be under that umbrella. But if I do, let's say I cancel it and my term ends today, tomorrow I make a video and use that music, that's under copyright issues. But anything before that. Now, on the same token, if I was to take that video and put it into a live compilation or something like that, that now is a new video and then doesn't fall under the previous terms. The old video still is good, but the new video will be under copyright issue. YouTube, yeah, you can use YouTube. I saw Mickey also mention YouTube in the chat. But the one small little caveat to that is some of the songs in YouTube, if you decide to take your video and put it on Facebook and put it on Instagram as well, then you can't just port that over, whereas some of these subscription companies say, all you have to do is tell us which YouTube channel you're on, which Facebook channel is yours, which Instagram channel is yours, and then if those videos show up, and you're making money off of them, you're good. And of course, if somebody else copies and then puts it on theirs, then they have to deal with all the issues, and you don't have to deal with that. So that's that. And then, of course, for a second, I want to talk about AI, because I have been using Suno.ai for music on some of the videos, and I'm using it sparingly because I've used a few of the different services. I've already gotten rid of Udio, UDIO, I think it's called, and .ai, because I've already run into songs that I've had them create that contain copyright, obvious copyright. I had them do a Christmas song, and they did Winter Wonderland, which is still under copyright. And I even went back to them and I said, hey, this is a copyright song, and they never responded. So ditch that service because I can't trust them. So Suno's the one I've been trusting. And the thing about their copyright is, as long as it's also a subscription service. So if you were to go into Suno right now and you have the free service and you were to make a song, you cannot use that. But if you subscribe, then all of a sudden that song is yours. The song is technically yours in different ways. I add lyrics to the song, so the lyrics is mine. So that's part of my copyright to that. So I can use that song in my YouTube videos, but if you're not paying for the service, you can't use that. So, and then of course, anything free AI, you just got to read through the terms of service, see where they're collecting their information, see what their terms are for you using this song, and if you can use it into a monetized YouTube video or not.
Courtney, can you do quick?
Well, it won't be quick, unfortunately. I was just going to ask the question. I've heard a lot of people come up with the problem. I don't create these, so Jeffrey and Jesse may be more qualified to answer this, is that if you subscribe to a service that has stock music, let's say, that you can choose from, and you pay the license for it, and you use that behind your video, and you post that on YouTube, well, those same pieces of music can be licensed by other people as well, because they're subscribing to that music service. Those same pieces will the YouTube bot, copyright bot, automatically, if somebody puts that same piece of music that you chose behind their video and they turn on the copyright and monetize their video, will it kick out yours because it recognizes that music behind that copyrighted piece that somebody else has put up, both of you under license? But the bot doesn't know that, so it might demonetize you. I've heard of people saying that. So,
Jeffrey or Jesse, do either of you have an idea how that works?
So the early days, there was a time in the early days where somebody was going, and I know exactly who it was, but I won't say that person's name. Very famous person was going through YouTube and actually picking up every single song and then doing the copyright and then coming back on their videos, and that happened. That still happens as of today. But YouTube's got a lot better content creation, and all you really have to do is once you've put the license, you have the license, you have the PDF. I started a new channel, which was basically a fireplace channel with music, and I just did the fireplace and I created the flames, and then somebody put a copyright claim on the flames, saying that it was theirs, and I just said, hey, this is where I got all the sounds that I used for these flames, and here's all the licenses for that, and then send it off. So keep your paperwork in line if that does happen.
Okay, we've got to move along. Next question.
Next one comes in from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. Has anyone used the Comica VM40 32-bit float with onboard recording? YouTube creators are excited about it, but what do our audio pros think?
Jesse, real quick.
Oh, YouTube creators are always excited about something. Let's look at what we're talking about, and then we'll talk about what we're looking at. So it's a shotgun mic with a built-in recorder in the actual microphone and a wireless transmitter that goes to a little device that you can use to monitor the audio. We've used this, or maybe the previous model, but it's same brand, on a shoot before. Remember, this is it's being advertised as a $250 mic. It's a $100 mic with a $100 recorder and a $50 wireless transmitter built into it. So all of those components are going to be fine. We wouldn't rely on the wireless functionality at all in a paid production, but this will make your video sound better than if you don't have this mic and you're just using your cell phone or the onboard camera mic or something like that. So for $250, you could do a lot worse. And of course, mic technique is what's going to get you across the finish line, really. So consider it, go for it, experiment with it. We weren't disappointed, but it wasn't going to be a replacement for any of the actual $600 shotgun mics in our kit that are XLR cabled.
Jeffrey Powers, real quick.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would want to have a wire option to plug a wire in to go straight to the camera if everything else fails. But yeah, the wireless, don't trust on the wireless. The recording will always sound better than the wireless recording, believe it or not. If it has a cable, I'd definitely go for it. But I couldn't use it in public settings because it might just kick out.
Let's go to one more question. Next question.
Rajan Chandili in Los Angeles says, anyone using the new Apple Intelligence update and any new use cases?
A lot of chatter on the webs that I've been reading, but I haven't had much time because I've been deep in a book right now. If anybody, and nobody seemed to raise their hand today, Raj, I think we're all really fascinated with what Apple's going to be taking a shot at here. They've been always slow, but substantially really cool when they launch a new technology. So we're kind of hopeful for this. Liberty raised her hand. Liberty, have you heard anything?
I haven't yet, but Tony Mobley has. So go ahead, Rajan, just check with Tony because he's done some really fun things.
Oh, nice. I didn't know Tony was exploring that. That's excellent. Well, thank you all for participating today. As always, this has been a joy to have everybody who is involved in this show up every day and talk about things. Tomorrow is going to be interesting here. We're having a second hour. We haven't done second hours in a while, and we promoted the fact that we weren't doing them now because we're rejiggering the back end. We're figuring out stuff in the whole workflow process for office hours, but we're making an exception tomorrow. So we are going to have a second hour and introducing Nimbus Control. Our friend Jeff Keithley, one of Jeff, is going to be here, talk about this new control platform for remote and cloud production workflows. So that's going to happen in a second hour tomorrow. We'll be here regular first hour, and then we'll be talking to Jeff about Nimbus Control in the entire second hour tomorrow. Our thanks go out to all of you who listen to the show, who help us have a reason for being here every day. To our producers, those people who have asked questions and voted on those questions and really determined to run a show, thank you all. For our panelists, always an amazing brain trust of people who are freely sharing all the material and the wisdom that they have spent so much time gathering here every day. We appreciate them tremendously. And to our back-end crew, those unseen, often heroes who keep everything going, keep the oil and the maintenance happening on all the interweb tubes that distribute this all over the globe. We appreciate each and every one of you who, when we roll the credits at the end, sometimes take some time and look at all the names of all the people who have contributed to making this all possible. We really appreciate it. The Talak Traversal today, we've traveled 27,000 miles. That's 44,000 kilometers, 214 million bananas for scale. We will be back tomorrow. See you then. Thank you all. It's a fun show.
Great show. Yeah.
Great.
Liberty, good to see you again. You've been missing.
Exactly.
You've been traveling a ton?
Yeah. Oh, so much so. I'm trying to sit still for a second. So
Breathe. Just breathe.
Yes, very much so.
thanks, back end.
Thank you, everybody.
Betrayals.